folks, thanks for joining me today. In today's tutorial, I'm using a stone that I made from the molds that I got from the Happy Dotting Company. There is a link in the description below if you'd like to go and check out her shop. Amazing product, great quality, and I'm still using the same molds that I purchased about 3 years ago. So as long as you keep good care of them, they'll last forever. I painted it flat black as my base coat, and then I used a compass and I drew a circle using the center dot that's left from the mold. So that's one cool thing about the molds from the Happy Dotting Company is they have a center dot that when you cast the stone, it actually is raised slightly. So and it's the center of your rock. So that's what I use for my compass and make the circle around. So then I applied a dark green color, and then on top of it, while it was still wet and using my blending brushes, I put on a lighter green color. Now, I didn't want this to dry in a way, like I wanted a marble kind of look in the background with the two different colored greens. So I'm just sort of dabbing off with a finger sponge some of the raised areas and some of the extra paint. And I found that it went too dull. So best thing with acrylic paint, just add more. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm just sort of putting it on in random spots. I'm not really being particular about it. And then I put a coat of Dragonfly glaze over top. And now this is color shifting Dragonfly glaze. So the really cool thing about it is once it's dry and you shift it from one side to the other, the light hits it in different ways and you can see different colors on the background. Love this paint. It also protects your background so then when you paint on top of it, you can rub off a mistake if you make a mistake and it doesn't rub off the base coat. So it's really, really awesome for that as well. So what I wanted to do for this tutorial was to really get into the mood of autumn is here and the fall leaves are changing color and the brightness of everything. I really wanted to get into it. So I've also noticed that gnomes are a big thing. So I thought I'd give a shot at painting a gnome. So this is my autumn gnome. And if you saw the thumbnail at the beginning, you'll see that how it turns out. But um, this is how we do it. This is how we make this really cute little gnome. So I started off by sketching it on with my General's charcoal pencil, and that way I can see it as well as when I'm finished. If there's anything still showing, it wipes off fairly easy with a damp cloth or paper towel, something along that lines, and it just comes off really easy, especially since you have the glaze all over top of the background color. It comes off fairly easy. So I'm just doing a little bit of blending with one of my homemade blending brushes in the pumpkin at the bottom there. So I put my base coat on, and you'll have noticed that I used a paintbrush because the paint that I was using was a transparent paint and it wasn't going on as thick as I wanted it to with my blending brush. So I had to use a paintbrush to get the rest of it on there. But it worked. And then I went in with a lighter color. I think this is a yellow. I want to say moon yellow, could be school bus yellow. I can't remember exactly, but if you want to know all the colors that I use, I have them listed in the description below with the brand name and the actual name of the paint. Now, I'm not saying that you have to use the paints that I did. You can certainly use whatever you have in your stash and just make it your own. This is just a tutorial to give you an idea as to how to go about doing it, and doing the blending and that kind of stuff. But make this your own. Don't even do the background green. Like use a different color. Maybe use like light blues or purples or whatever you want. So I'm just basically making the pumpkin so it's light on the top and really dark on the bottom, and then a light, not a light, a medium color in the middle of the pumpkin. And then eventually I will go back in and I will make the veins or the roundness of the pumpkin so it really defines it. So now I'm putting on the gnome's nose. This is the vocal point of a gnome, and I feel that this is what shapes the rest of the gnome itself. So I just used my blending brush. I used a little bit of flesh tone color, added a little bit of white to give it some shine on the top, and that was it. And then you had your nose. And using those blending brushes were perfect because they're the perfect size for this gnome, and I was able to get it on there really nice. So now I'm doing the beard. And what I do with this is I put on solid color of gray. Now, this gray I actually mixed, so it's black and white put together, and I just used it. I didn't need a lot of it, so I didn't want to pour any out of my bottles. I already had white and black already poured out, so I just mixed some of it together and came up with this nice dark gray color. Then what I'm going to do is use my fine lining brush, and I'm going to do some quick strokes from the nose down because it's thicker at the nose and tighter, I guess, for the hair. So you want it nice and tight up there, and then as it flows down the gnome's chest, I guess, then it sort of furrows out or gets furry. Um, Anyways, so that's what I did, and I just allowed some of the gray to come through so that it has that not 3D effect, but the three-dimensional kind of, I don't know, that's the same thing, isn't it? Anyway, it just gives that appearance of the layers that you can see the dark through the light and so on and so forth. So my pumpkin was a little bit small after I got my gnome's nose painted on there, so I just wanted to make it a little bit bigger. And since the paint was dry, I was able to go over top and get more of a solid coverage on it. So I just started off with the darker color and moved my way up to the lighter color up at the top. So always remember too that these colors, when you put them on, especially I find with yellows and oranges, of those colors, that they tend to dry darker than what they look like when they're wet. So just keep that in mind when you're putting on your paint and when you're blending them together. It will dry a bit darker. I apologize for the light glare on this rock that I'm doing, and that's just from the Dragonfly glaze that I put on it to seal the background color. And so the light is actually reflecting off of it, so some of it might be a little bit hard to see, but I'll do my best to try to explain what I'm doing. So the pumpkin looks a lot better now, and I'm just going to let that dry. While it's drying, I'm going to work on the gnome's hat. And this is another part of the gnome that really defines the type of gnome I find. So I wanted to do something that was bright and cheery and more of a primary color. So that's why I chose red. You can choose whatever color you want. But I liked this color red. I think it's apple red. But again, the colors are all listed below. Just remember that when I paint these, I've actually painted them a few weeks ago, and so my mind doesn't always remember what colors I've used, because since then I've probably done like 6 or 7 more rocks after it. So just keep that in mind, but I do always make sure that it's listed in the description below so that you, the viewer, can see exactly what paints that I'm using. And it's a good reminder for me too. So I put on the hat, and it's just basically like a triangle with some loops at the bottom and then like a little flag off the side. That's your basic shape. And then you go in and by using light and dark colors of the red, you define it as putting the wrinkles in and making it plump or skinny, whatever you want it to be. So I started off with the dark colors, And as you can see there, I just put in a couple of wrinkles and it makes that hat just come alive. And I'm doing more of the darker colors on the bottom there and figuring out where the light is coming from, where the shadows are going to go, where the wrinkles are going to go. And it's completely up to you. So do it the way that you want to do it. This was just what I wanted to do, and I just went with the flow on what I thought the hat would look like. So I just continue putting in the darker color. Now, all this is that I did to make this darker color was I used the original red and I just added a tiny bit of black. So I'm not I'm not using a lot of different colors, so I'm not opening up a lot of different bottles of paint. But what I am doing is I am mixing with what I have. So that way I can still get the shades that I want and still get the same effect without having a gazillion bottles of paint. Um, so then once that's done, I take a little bit of the original red paint and I add a little bit of white to it. Now, you got to be careful with this because sometimes it will go to a pink, which this kind of did, but with the background of the original red, it seemed to work okay. And you just got to be mindful of that so that it doesn't, you don't lose the redness, right? You want to keep that and not go to a pink. So I just use that to add in all of my light sources. And then now I'm just going in doing a little bit of cleanup. So I want more of that bright red color shining through where the dark was, where my blending brush maybe got a little bit excited and put paint where it wasn't supposed to. So I'm just cleaning that up just to give the hat more of its color back. And just following along the lines of the darks and the lights and the shadows and the light reflections and that sort of thing. So just to make it all cleaned up and looking really good. Don't forget to give me that thumbs up to let me know that you like this tutorial. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. I try to post every week. And ring that bell and you'll get a notification every time that I do. And I'm really interested in knowing what you guys think about this whole gnome craze. Leave me a comment below. I'm almost thinking of maybe doing a gnome series, kind of like how I did the Birthstone series, which I haven't finished up yet. I've still got November and December to do, so stay tuned for that. But let me know what you think. Maybe I could do gnomes with hats of the color of the birthstone. I don't know. But I'm interested to know what you think. So leave me a comment below. So I've added a stem onto the pumpkin, and that gives me sort of the guidelines as to where I need to put the grooves in the pumpkin itself. So if you look on a pumpkin, the stem always has sort of like a star shape to it. And wherever that star shape is, seems to be where the veins are or the indents of the pumpkin are. So that's what I used for that. Then I just put a leaf on the tip of the hat. And all I did was I used the same colors that are on the pumpkin, but I sort of used my blending brush and I put it into one color and then dabbed it off a bit and then added the second color so that I would have like a multicolor, like almost marble like I did the background. But this way I was doing it all in one shot. So I put that on there and just quickly did back and forth like what a leaf would look like. And now I'm going to let it dry so that I can do the veining on it and outline it and all that good stuff. So while it's drying, I put on the gnome's hands or his mittens, holding onto the pumpkin, and I used the same color as the hat color so that it matches. And I wanted to give him a nice bright colored coat. So went with this primary blue color. I think it's cobalt blue. Again, the colors are in the description below. But I really wanted something to stand out. And I really like the color combinations. It's very primary. but it seems to work really well. So then I just take my fine lining brush and I use black paint to outline everything. So I start off with his nose and then I just work my way around the entire design. And all this does is really make it pop. So it's not sort of merging in with the background, it separates it from the background and really makes that image stand out, and it's not being swallowed up by that background. That's what you want. So I just go around the outside of the design, just outlining it with my fine lining brush. If you find that your paint is getting a little bit too thick on your brush, just rinse it out in a cup of water, and then without drying it off, dip it back in your paint again, because then it gives the water actually gives it more flowability. Is that a word? Let's use it. So yeah, it gives it more flowability so that you can really get more out of your paint stroke, and you can really follow the lines a lot better. Some of you folks have made comments about the circular thing that I'm using to turn my rock around instead of being right on the table, kind of like a little small turntable. Um, I have found some of these that I was able to buy in more of a bulk situation. I couldn't find anything that was like singular. So I want to pass these savings on to you. So I'm putting them into my Etsy shop, hopefully to have that updated by tomorrow. And they will be available for sale in my Etsy shop. So I'm not even really sure what the actual name of them are, but they fit the rocks from the Happy Dotting Company just absolutely perfect, and you can use them to turn your rock around rather than touching the rock. So if you have wet paint on there, you don't have to worry about it. You just use the turntable on the back. After the video is finished, go down and check out the description. The link to my Etsy shop is there. And if you're interested in anything else that I paint that I don't post on YouTube, check out my Facebook page. I post things on there of things that I may have done for custom orders, I may have done outside of videoing. And I also try to stay on top of Instagram. I do have a few posts there, so you can check me out there as well. But definitely the places that I post the most are on my Etsy and on my Facebook page. So definitely check that out. I say definitely a lot. I also say a lot. Maybe I should do a count on one of my videos and see how many times I actually say it. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see something like that. Might be fun. Now we're just going to finish this off with a beautiful thick gold band all the way around and framing it in completely against that beautiful green color as the base and that dragonfly glaze that we put on. So once you're done with this, it's just a coat of resin and it's finished. So remember folks, life is what you make it, so get creative.